Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the new Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom number 13, Core Class Megatron. Megatron is one of two new Core Class figures in this second wave of Kingdom toys, along with Starscream, and he's scaled in a way to be part of the whole ARC playset gimmick that's coming down the road. This Megatron's interesting because he's very different when compared to the Siege or Earthrise Megatrons. He's very much doing his own thing and, takes some interesting liberties with the classic design, and you'll get to see that here. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Megatron's packaging, then we'll open it up. We'll see Megatron himself in both his tank and robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Megatron comes in your standard core size Kingdom packaging, just your normal blister card style for the little guys. And his artwork's interesting because his artwork looks to be completely based off of the Siege figure. Easiest way to tell is he's got the little 5mm ports on the top of his tank treads, and then some other details too, like his shoulders, the fusion cannon. So that's interesting. You'd think they'd base the artwork off of maybe his Earthrise form, but they look pretty similar overall. And then the toy himself doesn't really look like either one. He uses this really interesting mix of light silvers and more of a dark gunmetal gray. He's got like these big old tread shoulders going on here. He's got a pretty stubby little fusion cannon. And then it's hard to see, but he comes with a mini version of his classic pistol mode, which actually, if you look on the back here, you can see becomes his tank cannon. So that's a really, really interesting twist, right? His gun mode serves as the tank cannon for his new vehicle mode. Pretty meta there. So you can see both renders for vehicle and robot. He takes 12 steps to transform, so he's not as complex as Starscream. And you can see there's a much less color breakup on the renders, a lot less dark silver. He's much more closely colored to his other figures. They really went dark with him here, which is interesting. Kind of puts him closer to the Netflix toys. I do really like his head sculpt. Look at that. That's one of the better looking head sculpts of the three. In fact, if Earthrise had a head like this, I think it was way, way better. Alright, so that's it for the packaging. Let's go ahead and open them up now. Alright, here's Megatron's little instruction booklet. Get his name here, render, branding, his number in the line, 13. Lucky number 13. Or unlucky, depending on your superstitions. Okay, here we see him wielding his little handgun thing. We also see it attached to his back and forming something close to the scope attachment for his G1 cartoon design. So that's pretty cool. And then we go straight into the transformation from robot to tank. And then we get to our finished product here. Alright, here's Megatron's tank mode. You can see it's a compact little thing. You get silver painted treads here, which don't actually roll. In fact, he doesn't have any wheels of any kind. So the best you can do is just glide along a surface, which I wouldn't even do that because you're going to scratch the paint. So that's unfortunate. It's kind of a first. They get a tank that has no way of rolling. You can see his whole turret section can spin 360. They may get a little hung up here where these feet stick up. Speaking of, yep, the feet still stick up. He is a miniature version of his Voyager, at least in that regard, that he's got the obnoxious feet on the back. His cannon, you can see the main part of it is formed by his G1 handgun mode, which is an interesting choice. And the whole can itself can actually move up and down a bit. So you can aim up and down, you can rotate, all that stuff. Overall, it's okay for something, core size. I'm not really liking the big open area in the back here. That doesn't look very good. The legs are all exposed, and I don't know. His vehicle mode's not my favorite thing. It's okay. The fact that it has no wheels makes it feel really cheap to me. It almost doesn't feel like it belongs in the Kingdom line. It feels pretty bare bones. Here's a quick look at both the Siege and Earthrise Megatron toys. And I have them both out because it's not 100% obvious which one of these versions of Megatron this is supposed to emulate. I mean, I'm guessing it's probably the Earth-based one, but because this toy really does its own thing, more so than I think any of the other G1-based core class toys, it's hard to say for sure. Maybe both, maybe neither, you know. But you can see some similarities between them. Again, you get the feet on the backs of the treads there that are just obnoxiously hanging out there. And, you know, the treads being mostly black with the top part being, you know, some kind of gray or silver. In his case, a very, very dark gray or silver. And you can see where the inspiration comes from. Again, he's not an exact match to either one, or really even a close match. But he does, you know, at a squint look like a miniature version of either one of these. All right, now it's time to do the transformation to robot mode. So the first thing you want to do is remove his little cannon/handgun and set it aside. Then you want to untab the back half of the treads from the front half. And you're going to untab here. And straighten the leg out. Same thing on this side, like so. And you're going to turn the waist 180, like this. Go ahead and you're going to fold this up, untab his forearms from these pieces right here, flip his shoulders around like so, so they plug into place. Then you're going to grab this, you're going to pull up on it a little bit, swing all this down around, push it all down until it locks into place here on the back, like so. Turn the head around. And now this part's kind of cool. So this forearm, you just rotate around 180. This one, it's just one panel that rotates here that his wrist is mounted on. So instead of the whole forearm, it's just the wrist that turns, which is pretty neat. I mean, the forearm can turn too, but turn the fusion cannon around. Here you go. Here's your evil little Decepticon tyrant. And I gotta say, he's really cool looking for what he is. It's just this neat little take on Megatron. Not exactly accurate to any one portrayal. If anything, it kind of reminds me of like the pre-Earth IDW Megatron, because he tended to have like big shoulders and treads and stuff. Overall, though, he's really neat to look at. And then you have a choice with what to do with this little pistol thing. You can have him wield it like any old weapon. Just goes into the little 3mm hole on his hand. And that looks kind of cool, right? You can have Megatron wielding Megatron. Or you can go ahead, put it right here on his back. Again, to simulate that little extra bit of kibble he had in the G1 cartoon. I think that looks really nice. So even though very little about this guy is actually accurate to the G1 cartoon, you can at least get that far, which is pretty cool looking. I love the painted details on this guy. They really went out of their way, right? They got the whole ab section painted with the different blue and red highlights, the yellow down here, you got some red around the edges, and all this is silver. A lot of them is also done up in this like really dark silver color, including his helmet, and then the face is lighter silver like his hands. Just a lot going on here. He looks really nice. As far as posability, his head can move on a ball joint, which is nice. The shoulders are ball jointed, as are the elbows. This wrist can technically swivel, though it can only swivel outward in a very unnatural way, so I wouldn't really count that. It does have waist swivel, which can be fully utilized in robot mode. Ball jointed hips, which are kind of loose on my copy. Not so much where he falls over, but he can't support any weight, that's for sure. Ball jointed knees, and sadly no ankle tilt, though that's kind of the norm at this class, at least for the G1 characters. Overall, he's a very nice little package. And for something that's supposed to be like a Legends class equivalent, or, you know, something around that scale, I think he's the best little Megatron we've had yet. He's got great proportions, great posability, and just a really impressive visage. Here's our look with the other two Megatrons again, and you can see he's absolutely dwarfed by his Voyager counterparts. And I'll say in this mode, just by a little bit, he reminds me more of the Earthrise one. I think it's, between the helmet shape and the kind of clean looking chest there, plus the more standard shaped fusion cannon as opposed to kind of extra tech detailed one that the Siege toy has. But again, he's not really a match for either one. I think he looks great, even though he doesn't go the same route Starscream does and, directly mimic one of his larger counterparts. He's still very obviously the same character, even if the details are somewhat changed. And he just looks really good for what he is. I actually like it. I like that they kind of strayed from the design and gave us something a little bit different. Because if there's one thing that's going to keep this line fresh, considering they're insisting on using like the same several characters over and over again for everything, at least mix up the designs and make them interesting. And I'd say they've really done that here. They didn't go crazy trying to make him look like any one particular version. They just kind of did their own thing. And I think he just came out looking really good. And lastly, here's a group shot with all of the currently available G1 based core class figures. Of course, we get Starscream on the left, Optimus, and Bumblebee. And this gives you an idea of scale. And I think they pretty much nail it here. He's a fair bit taller than Starscream, going by, head height, and ever so slightly taller than Optimus, which is kind of perfect, right? He's always supposed to be like a little bit bigger than Optimus. He's supposed to be like the brute, whereas Optimus is kind of the brave, David to his Goliath. Though maybe that's not the best metaphor because Optimus is, no weakling. But, Megatron's supposed to look just a little bit more intimidating. And then, of course, you get Bumblebee, who's just too big for the whole thing anyway. So, yeah, I think he looks absolutely fantastic here. And so far, I think he's my favorite looking core class figure. Now, Starscream and Optimus are awesome in their ability to replicate larger versions of those characters, right? They are like mini, simpler versions of their Voyager class toys. Whereas Megatron, again, is just trying to do his own thing, and I think that kind of works in his favor because he gets to work with a design that just lends itself a little bit better to this scale. And, again, the paint and surface detailing and stuff on him is really phenomenal. He looks great. All of his details are very clear. Like, they really put a lot of effort in on him. So, I really like him. I think he is, so far, my favorite G1-based core class figure. So if you do see one of these guys on shelves, which you should by now, they should be hitting your Walmarts and your Targets and stuff, I would definitely pick him up. I really had a lot of fun transforming this guy. Admittedly, his tank mode's a bit weak, but he really shines in the robot mode. And the fact that you kind of get this triple whammy of him being able to wield himself as a gun, or use it to become his little backscope, or, as we saw with Starscream's review, actually interact with Starscream in both jet and robot modes. I mean, there's a lot of play value here, and he's just a really cool little toy with a really neat little transformation. I love the whole turning wrist that like moves a panel around his forearm that covers everything up. I think it just looks fantastic, and it's really creative. He's got a great head sculpt. The abs are a really nice touch. So yeah, absolutely pick this dude up if you're into core class figures. He's gonna really shine when you go ahead and place him with your Arc in its ship mode and stuff. And I think if you do get him, you'll really enjoy him. Of course, that's just how I feel about this Megatron. Now I want to know what you guys all think of this. Do you see yourselves picking this up? Do you have either the Siege or Earthrise Megatrons, or both of them, and still see a reason to get this guy? Or did you skip those but think he might actually be a better addition to your collection? Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Core Class Megatron. And with all that said, I will see you next time.